I particularly like to apply it with a piece of sponge. Hi everybody. Right, I've been asked a few times if I could do a video on wax finishing, so decided today's the day I'm going to do it. So the wax I use is this one. It's Fiddes Wax, Fiddes Supreme Wax Polish it's called. They do a lot of products, but this is the one we use on our timber. I've tried other brands, I've tried Bry Wax and whatnot, but to be honest, my personal opinion, I just think this one, Fiddes, is the best on the market. I'm not being paid to promote this, by the way. It's just, I say as I find, and I just believe that this is the best wax out there. It's just quality, it's easy to apply, and it's no dearer than the other waxes that's on the market. So I'm going to show you how to do this today. It's a bit of a knack to it. So this comes in all different colours. I've got three here: Rugger Brown, Jacobean and Strip Pine. And for this example, I'm going to use the Strip Pine because I've been using it this morning. Right, let's open this tin. So wax polish is just like you would say wax, like shoe wax or car wax. It's basically all the same sort of thing. Now you can apply it with a brush, you can apply it with a cloth. I particularly like to apply it with a piece of sponge, because what I find is if you apply it with a brush, then you've got to go over with a cloth just to smooth the wax out. Whereas if you use a bit of sponge, you can put it on and spread it out with the sponge without having to use anything else. So we've got our piece of wood here, and we're going to just apply a bit of wax. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just drop the camera down now, just so you can see what I'm doing, if you don't see my ugly mug. So there we go. So just apply it with the sponge, rubbing it into the grain. If you don't rub it in properly, you'll end up with white bits where it's not got into the grain. So just put plenty of wax on. Don't try and be too stingy when you're putting it on. Spread it evenly. And this is like car wax. You don't want to be leaving it 15-20 minutes while you go off and do something else, then come back. Because what you'll find is it's like car wax, it will actually go hard and then you'll have a nightmare to do anything with it. So try and concentrate on one area and try not to start one side of a piece of furniture or whatever you're doing and then go and do another piece and then come back to it. Because what you'll find is you'll end up with like a joint line where you can see the two times you waxed. So that's something important to remember. Just try and keep going and finish one panel at a time if you can. I know it's not always easy, especially if you're on a big dining table. But if you're doing like a plank dining table, what I'd do is I'd do one plank at a time, rather than do like a 12-inch strip across the end of the table. Go down the table along the plank. Also, when you're doing, especially, this is Canadian pine, when you're doing something like Canadian pine, it's important to sand it evenly, because if you don't sand it evenly, what you'll find is where you have sanded will become a lot lighter than when you haven't sanded. So even if you would smooth, really, you want to get into the habit of sanding it, because if you don't, what happens is when you sand, especially with a random orbital sander, you're actually opening the pores of the timber up to allow the wax to get hold of the sort of surface. And if you don't do that, if you just try and put it on a piece of, say, plane that's been through that machine behind me, the plane of thicknesser, if you just put wax onto a surface like that, you'll find it'll just skid off and it'll come out a lot lighter as well, so you won't get a nice effect. And for that example, as you can see, I've spelt wax on here with a sander. so you can see the difference. It's hold it the right way up. It's totally different, the colour, and that's just where I've touched it with the sander. It's flat, but just where I've touched it with the sander, you can see what a massive difference it makes. It's important that you sand the whole surface evenly, so you don't have that problem. Once you've applied the wax, so we've applied the wax now, just ignore the wax word now. We've applied all the wax, so as you can see, we've got really into the grain. There's no bits we've missed. And then there's a couple of things you can do now. You can use a hand cocoa brush and you can go over it to buff it. But what I like to use this thing. It's a rotary brush. We buy that. You can buy these from the wax suppliers as well. We buy them from our wax supplier here in Chesterfield. Just I'll give them a shout out. It's Mark at Fiddes in Chesterfield, and we buy these from him. They're about £15–20 each or something like that, but it's so much faster with a rotary brush than it is by hand. So we take we use a cordless drill, and we just pop it in there like that, and then you just go over your waxed area. The thing to remember when you're doing this is the more you buff it, the shinier it'll go. So if you don't want it too shiny, don't buff it too much. What we also find is if you put the wax on, just leave it a couple of minutes before you buff it. Once you've covered the whole panel, it's probably best if you can do one panel and then apply the wax to the next panel and then come back to this panel to buff it, because if you buff it too soon, you will find you'll not get as good. It'll just go a bit flat, the surface will. You won't get a nice sheen on it. And that's about it really. That's it. So now you can see, I don't know if you can see that with the light in here. Okay, you can. As it light catches it, it's just got that little sheen to it, you see. So if I kept polishing that more and more, it would go shinier and shinier and shinier the more you polish it. But now, when you've waxed a piece of furniture or something like that, it's important to be careful what you clean it with. Ideally, what you want to clean this wax surface with is just a very slightly moist, damp cloth and wipe it over. Whatever you do not use spray wax polishers, because what you'll find, it'll take all the surface off the wax and you'll end up with a really flat, horrible surface. You can use like another wax polish, which is like a beeswax polish, like this stuff here. You can get it in clear in the little jars you can buy at the supermarkets. Make sure it's beeswax that you apply with a cloth, and then that'll be okay. But don't get into things like spray polishers like you clean your normal furniture with. Don't use that on wax furniture, because what you'll find is it'll take all the shine and all the finish out of your wax and it'll just ruin it. Be careful when you're waxing any edges like that on the corners and things, because when you wax a surface you might get a little bit of wax go down the side edge. So it's always important not to leave any lumps of wax there, because if you do, once they're dry, they can be a bit of a devil to get off. You can get them off. And another thing another handy tip is, if you get some wax, like a lump of wax or a mark where you've not buffed it properly, after it's sort of gone hard, you think, oh no. A good tip is, if you just get a bit more wax on your sponge or your cloth and wipe over that. Now, this seems a bit weird because you've already got too much wax on there. Why would you apply more wax? It's because inside the wax there's a chemical which will actually soften the wax up, and then it'll allow you to use the buffer and just go over it again and just buff it out, buff the mark out. But you'll find it a lot easier if you just dab a little bit more wax on and then buff it. The wax will activate it and it'll soften it, and then you'll find it'll buff a lot easier. So as I say, important thing to remember when waxing, sand the whole area. Even if your wood's smooth, I would still advise sanding it before you wax, because it will open the pores up on the surface of the wood and allow the wax to adhere to it. As I say, I prefer Fiddes wax because I just think it's the best of the wax there is. So, but each to their own. But I personally prefer this wax. Comes in lots of different colours. I tend to stick in the weight shop. I stick to 3. I stick to the strip pine, rugged brown, and Jacobean colours. I stick to those 3 because I find if you give customers too much choice, then they sort of umming and ahhing and they don't know what colour to go for. So I stick to the strip pine, which is like a light, the rugged brown, which is like a medium, and the Jacobean, which is like a dark, and that works fine. So that's it. That's wax polishers, quick tutorial. So if you need to know anything else, if you want any advice or anything about waxing or anything like that, then post it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it for you. And the next video's products. So we've got an interesting product to look at next. So hope to see you on that video. And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.